Hi YouTube, welcome to another video. Here I've got a Dell G315 gaming laptop. I purchased this guy back in May, and it took Dell quite a while to get it to me. There's an entire story there, complete debacle. I'm not going to go into it, but I actually received it about a month later, in maybe late June or so, and then I've had it for a couple months since, and I thought it's about time to make a video on it. So I got this for about 900 bucks, like I said, back in May. It was on sale. Again, it's a G315. It's last year's model. It's the G315 3579 to be specific. So it's from 2018. There's a reason why I bought the 2018 model instead of the 2019 model. And I got it in the blue color scheme because it comes in blue and in gray. So like I said, it was about $900 with Ebates, because Ebates was doing a special at the same time. I actually got it for about $800 after that, and once you factor in my cash back from my credit card, I got it for, technically speaking, under $800, probably around $780, $790, all said and done. And Dell actually gave me a little bit of a refund for $20 because they screwed up getting it to me so badly. So that was actually kind of cool. I got a really good deal on it. So to start off, the reason why I bought this is because, well, I was originally looking for some gaming, not actually gaming, but some like Linux workstation laptop. I was looking for something with more minimal graphics, but that was like sleek, compact, good battery life. Thinking of maybe putting like Ubuntu on it, making a Linux machine. But as I did more browsing, I came across the Dell G3 series, which seemed like it was sleek, affordable, and had solid graphics to it. At which point decided, screw it, I'll buy a laptop with a GTX 1060 in it and just leave Windows on it because it's only a few $100s more than some Linux laptop would be. So that's why I bought it. I bought the 2018 model because I like the design a lot better. The new model is much more jagged looking. It's got the hinges right here and here with the gaps and everything, and it's a little bit bulky, and you got the edges that stick out. And I'm not really a fan of that kind of like gaming laptop design. I'm looking for something that's a little more kind of professional, looking almost like something that you would see in a business. It's got a little bit of pizzazz to it with the blue backlight and the kind of the checkerboard coloring scheme here and the highlights and all that, but it's not something that's like big and bulky and anything like that. So my first impressions are that, like I said, it's definitely a nice laptop for what it is. It's not the slimmest laptop out there, but it's great because it's also not the bulkiest. A lot of gaming laptops, like I'll compare it to my Lenovo Y510P from 2013. That thing was a little bit of a behemoth. This is a little slimmer than most powerful laptops you'll see out there. It's not super thick, but it's not super slim either. It doesn't weigh that much. It's definitely a little bit heavier than your standard little tiny notebook, but that's because it's got some juicy hardware in it, so it's perfectly acceptable. It's a good middle ground, all said and done. I really like the blue colored Dell logo here. Very slightly blue colored. You've got the G3 text right there. And overall, it just looks really compact, and like I said, almost professional. It's not funny looking by any means, in my opinion. So that was what really attracted me to it. And plus, the newer model, the 2019 model, has a very similar model of i7. I'll go into specs in a second, but the new version of the i7, the 9000 series i7, is basically the same damn processor, just with like 100 megahertz extra to the clock speed, or maybe 200 megahertz. So I really didn't feel like I needed to buy the updated model. I didn't feel like I was losing out on performance very much, because most of us know that Intel has really been stagnating lately. They haven't really been pushing out vast performance upgrades in their CPU lineup. So I really didn't feel like I was missing out on much of anything there as far as performance goes. So for specs, it's got an i7 8750H, that's a 6-core CPU. Base clock is only 2.2 gigahertz, but it boosts up to 3.1. I was definitely happy to get a 6-core 12-thread CPU because I'm really bored of getting 4-core CPUs. I think it's ridiculous. Intel is still pushing out some, until recently it was pushing out like a lot of 4-core, 4-thread CPUs. But I think it's great because you really don't need an i9 for like gaming professional use unless you're doing some really hardcore stuff, so I wasn't going to go with a laptop with an i9. And I think the 6-core i7 here is a good middle ground where it doesn't chug a lot of power because the frequency is a little bit lower, but you still get plenty of performance potential right there. Now what's really weird with this configuration is that this is actually the highest model that Dell had to offer actually. And the highest model you can choose, of course, has the best graphics card, and it comes with your USB-C Thunderbolt combo port right there, which we'll talk about in a minute. But oddly enough, the highest model you can select comes with the worst RAM and the worst SSD. I don't know why Dell decided that. I really wish I could have honestly just bought it without the SSD or without the RAM in it and saved myself $100, $150. But it's the only way you could buy it. It was still such a good deal. So I bought it with two 4 gig chips of DDR4 2666, which isn't bad. 8 gigs isn't enough, and I was doing some looking into the specs, and the RAM that comes with it is actually pretty not great. It's like a CAS latency of like 20 cycles, I want to say, which isn't the fastest memory by any means. The default SSD was 128 gig NVMe. It's not the fastest NVMe out there, but it's not the slowest either. It was definitely faster than a SATA SSD, so I didn't have too much to complain about. I actually went ahead and replaced the RAM SSD, which I'll talk about in a second. Came with a 1 terabyte, 5400 RPM hard disk for just storage on the side. It was not bad. It's got a GTX 1060 Max-Q GPU that's 6 gigs. Definitely a pretty solid GPU. My last gaming laptop, my Lenovo, had SLI, which I regretted deeply after a while because SLI is kind of like not the best way to go. So the GPU is definitely pretty good. I'll go into the gaming performance in a little bit. And it's got Intel wireless 9462AC. That's a dual band wireless adapter. I'm not going to go too deep into the specs on it, but it's basically, bottom line is that it's a solid Wi-Fi adapter, because a lot of laptops are really skimping on Wi-Fi adapters. You know, you'll get some Wi-Fi adapter in some laptops that only supports 2.4 gigahertz, not 5, and is really slow and just clunky. But I've had no issues with the Wi-Fi on this thing. It works plenty fast with my AP. Goes nice and fast, connects to 2.4 and 5, no issues. I'm definitely happy with it. So one of the first things I did was I went ahead and I pulled out the default SSD, replaced it with an XX8200 Pro by XPG. This is not the exact same thing. This is a 1 terabyte. I bought a 512 gig for about $75. Do not regret that whatsoever. It's 4 times larger, about twice as fast, and this laptop flies on it. And I also bought a 16 gig chip, that's right, a 16 gig chip of Kingston HyperX Impact RAM. I did some benchmarks here that I can kind of show you, and I found that my performance is better with that 16 gig chip than it was with the 116 plus one of the 4s left over. That RAM was $35, same frequency, just a lower CAS latency, so I doubled my my RAM frequency, or excuse me, I doubled my RAM capacity. And I'm not going to go super into detail, but I did some memory tests, and that 160 gig chip I bought with one of the 4 gigs left in actually bottlenecked the CAS latency to the lowest speed. So the 4 gig chip is actually slowing down my 16 gig chip, so I believe I'm actually getting better performance in the 82nd percentile based on memory mark with that 116 gig chip versus 16 plus one of the 4s. And I really don't need any more than 16 gigs of RAM in this laptop, so 16 is fine for now. So one thing I was really worried about when I bought this was the screen. A lot of people complained about it. They said the screen is just not good. So I was doing some research. I was prepared to spend almost $100 on a new screen, and mind you, I'm somebody who's your average techie. I don't do graphic design for a living, so I don't have the best eye for color accuracy. But honestly, in my opinion, the screen looks 100% fine. It looks fine. It gets plenty bright, gets plenty dim. The colors seem fine. Some people complain about them. I think it looks perfectly okay. Because I've seen some pretty bad screens in my time. My brother actually bought a cheap gaming monitor, which was a big mistake, and the colors on that were just awful. Ever since I've seen a bad screen, everything else looks pretty good. But anyway, the screen looks fine. I'm actually kind of proud of my background here. I took this last weekend, I think, with my DSLR. That's the Milky Way right there. So anyway, it looks pretty good. No complaints about the screen. You do get a little bit of bend here, and that's something you're going to have in the lower build quality laptops. If you want something that's full metal, doesn't bend, you can go buy a Dell XPS, but you're going to be spending probably twice as much money for the same specs. So I really didn't mind having a little bit of plasticky bend to it because I take good care of my machines, and so it doesn't bother me at all. It's got a backlit keyboard, of course. It does go off after a while. I think you can change those settings in the BIOS, so I change it to stay on for a few minutes so it doesn't go off automatically. The trackpad doesn't suck. I'm really, really happy about that, because my previous gaming laptop, my Lenovo Y510P, had honestly, it had a garbage trackpad, but this thing's not bad to use. It doesn't do that clack bull crap where you have to press and go clack, clack, clack on it. It's pretty sensitive to the touch. Your finger kind of glides across it, and it's really not a pain in the ass at all. So I'm definitely pretty happy with that. So overall, the build quality seems perfectly reasonable. Again, not as good as, you know, a Dell XPS or something like that, but considering the price and considering the fact that I take good care of my laptops, this is like absolutely perfect for the price. So one thing that is worth mentioning is that when you select the different models of this laptop, you can get different video cards. And with the GTX 1060 Max-Q, you get this port on here, the second one from the end. You get the USB-C with Thunderbolt, which is really cool. You know, of course, you also get HDMI, Ethernet that expands out, a couple of USB super speeds, a combo port for your audio, SD card slot, and another USB. But only the 1060 Max-Q gives you the USB-C. What's worth noting is that this laptop actually has dual graphics. I forget the model of integrated graphics, but you know, it's Intel UHD, whatever. It's the standard Intel integrated graphics, as well as your dedicated graphics card. And it's worth noting that when you plug a display in to the USB-C port, that comes off your integrated graphics. Right, that's not coming from your video card. If you're plugging a monitor in and you want to go into your video card to like play games on that monitor, you gotta plug in over HDMI. I mean, you could plug in via USB-C and play games on your monitor that way through a dock, which are pretty awesome. Dell has a lot of really good docks I've made reviews on before. But if you do that, if you plug into your USB-C to your monitor and you're trying to play games on that monitor, you're going to get some laggy performance with latency and all that because your video card, your GTX video card is rendering all the graphics, but it needs to, I'm not going to pretend to be smart enough to know everything about this, but it has to basically funnel it through the integrated graphics port and out through the dock and into the display. So bottom line, if you're going to play games on an external display, it's got to be plugged in to your HDMI port to get like any good performance out of it. But the USB-C is still great for a dock to be able to plug into for, you know, non-gaming purposes and things like that. Now the charger it comes with is this guy right here. The 3-pin cable it plugs into it isn't very long. It's only maybe 18 inches, 24 inches, a couple feet. So I just went ahead and swapped it out for a nice super long one that you don't need to see. But it's 180 watt. It's a little bit of a brick, not as big as some of the gaming laptop power supplies I've seen, but certainly not as small as your typical, you know, Dell Inspiron would be. It doesn't look flashy at all. They didn't try to make this a gaming power supply, which honestly I really don't care about because I just don't care about the aesthetics of my power adapter, let's be honest. It's got the standard Dell jack to it, which is actually great because I can plug this into my work laptop. I can plug into most other Dell laptops without issue. Nothing fancy to it. It's not that heavy. It's more big than it is heavy, but yeah, really no complaints about it there. The battery life is pretty good. With web browsing, I'd probably get 4 hours maybe. I mean, granted, you're not going to get as good battery life with a gaming laptop as you would with something with, you know, more reasonably, not reasonably, but a lesser powered CPU and all that. But I do believe you can play games on it on battery. Not that great. You're obviously going to get better performance when you're plugged in, but it's not like some gaming laptops where you literally can't even play Minecraft on battery. You can do that. So now what I'll go ahead and do is I'll dig into some performance benchmarks. So I've got the Shadow of the Tomb Raider loaded up. It's on highest settings, 1080p. I do not have anti-aliasing turned up all the way though, because that's kind of just unnecessary. So I'm going to go ahead and run the benchmark. One thing that is worth mentioning is that this laptop doesn't have stellar cooling. The fans do eject in here, so it does get a little bit hot. Some gaming laptops have fan ports that come out the sides that just shoots the hot air straight out, but this one is a little bit more noisy because of that, because it has to work harder to get that air out, but it's never really posed an issue for me. So right now I'm getting about 40 FPS in this scene, which isn't too bad. It's not a very open area. And again, this is on highest settings. You really don't need to run, you know, Shadow of the Tomb Raider on highest settings to be happy with the laptop, I don't think. Because again, this isn't like the ultra most high-end gaming laptop on the market. It's just something that's a reasonable price with a reasonable gaming performance. So we got an average FPS of 42. It was mostly GPU bound. The CPU did hold things back a little bit in certain areas, but that's what I'm saying when I say that, you know, having an i7 like this is plenty powerful enough. You know, you have to have a pretty powerful graphics card before the CPU starts to be too much of a benchmark. So I went ahead and turned off anti-aliasing. I put it on high settings, which I'm pretty sure applied, and the average FPS went up by a few. So I would say you probably want to turn it down. You probably want to play this game on medium, with a mixture of medium-high settings. You'll probably get pretty good, solid, playable frame rates. This game is pretty intensive though. It looks really good. It just came out last year, so I would personally definitely be happy playing this on medium-high settings on like an $900 laptop. I also went ahead and kept some temperature monitoring software running. So we got up to 97 degrees Celsius in one of those CPU cores. The others didn't get quite so high. Actually, one got to 98. I might have actually noticed a teeny bit of throttling, but I think you might want to keep it propped up a little bit to let the air get out from under the laptop, and you shouldn't have too many issues. GPU got to 7 degrees Celsius, and as far as utilizations go, it seemed to utilize all the CPU cores approximately the same. The CPU never quite got to 100%. It stayed at around, 80% average maybe, so that's not too bad. Now what I can do for you is I can do a 7-zip test. I like to do this just to measure raw CPU performance. So I'll open up 7-zip, and I'll say Tools, Benchmark. And it automatically just starts going. And I don't need to run this for very long to get a pretty good total rating. Right now we're seeing about 40,000 MIPS. I'm not sure what MIPS means, honestly, but that's pretty solid. My previous gaming laptop, I think, got like under 20, so maybe half that. My desktop i7 from 2012 probably got 25, and I think my Ryzen 3700X desktop CPU gets about 50 or 60 or so. So that's definitely a pretty solid CPU in this guy. Can definitely chew out some pretty good performance. So that's actually about it for this video. Overall, I'm definitely happy with my purchase. If I wanted the extra gaming performance, if I wanted the extra build quality, I would have gone with something like an XPS. But for what it is, this is definitely a solid laptop that will last me for quite a number of years, I'm sure. So I'm definitely pretty happy with it overall. So hopefully this video was fairly useful for you. Hopefully it was interesting, informative. If you want to see a video of me building my recent gaming desktop, it's a Ryzen build RGB desktop, please do check out that video. And otherwise, I'll hopefully see you in my future videos.